weekend, a battle for the top 15 at middleweight. We have France's Nassourdine Imavov taking on Numanceau's Joaquin Buckley in a great one. I mean, for Imavov, looking to hold that rank at number 12. A little bit of a surprise dipping outside of the rankings. And for Joaquin Buckley, a guy who's 4-1 in his last 5 fights, he's really set the world on fire in some of his recent performances. And if you look at it for Joaquin Buckley, I can go through the list, but his win over Antonio Arroyo, a much bigger man. His win over Albert Duraev, where that eye swelled up like it did in the Roman Kopylov fight, only this time they decided to end it between rounds. For Buckley, I'd say his worst performance, probably split decision win over Abdulrazak Alhassan, probably left a little bit to be desired, or his quick enough loss where there was the exchange of the head kicks between Abdulrazak Alhassan, Joaquin Buckley, and Alessio Di Chirico. The hammer that night was Di Chirico, the nail was Joaquin Buckley, but we know Joaquin Buckley at this point. Very interesting southpaw, loads up quite a bit on his shots, loves to march forward, loves to throw with power, the most viral fighter on the internet, so his Instagram says, but his win over Impa Kasanganay made him a feature, I guess, in a video for Kanye West drop. Joaquin Buckley, very interesting fighter. For Nassourdine Imavov, 3-1 inside of the UFC's octagon. Complete performance against Jordan Williams in his debut. Majority decision loss to Phil Hawes, and one where Imavov had success with the striking, Hawes had success with the wrestling. You look at it for Imavov his last 2 times out, finish wins to get him into the rankings. One over Ian Heinisch where he just continued to pour the pressure on, land the jab, bust up the face, finish him up against the cage. And his win against Edmund Shabazian got him in a mount of crucifix, kept landing elbows. The referee said no more for Mr. Shabazian. So for both these guys, finishers to the nth degree, but they get it done in very different ways, and that's why I think this fight's going to be very fun.
I agree. I think this is going to be an incredible fight in the middleweight division, and between two guys who, again, they're well known in MMA fans' minds, but they do have a lot still to prove, because Joaquin Buckley has very obvious strengths, but there's massive weaknesses that come with his obvious strengths, and you had sort of alluded to them. He does load up a lot on his shots. Now, there's a give and a take to that, because when he lands his hooks, they are devastating. Like, he has incredible hand speed. He has really nice boxing combinations. But again, everybody knows what's coming before those shots come. And it's the load up, the fact that his chin's going to be very high in the air. Even think about how Kevin Holland beat him. Like, Kevin Holland waited. And then the second Buckley would load up on his shots, he'd make him pay for it pretty much every single time. Like, that knockout is a very, very nice knockout to go back and watch. Because it's just Kevin Holland, who's by far the softer of the two guys when it comes to how heavy their hands come. Joaquin Buckley, it's like he's throwing sledgehammers, whereas Kevin Holland, it is much more volume the majority of the time, but Kevin Holland looked like the power striker in that matchup because he was just able to time Joaquin Buckley as he was coming in.
Now, for Buckley, took that fight on 5 days' notice, that should be said, but if you do look at it, he has 6 knockdowns in his 7 UFC fights. He's finished 6 of his 7 fights in the UFC. Win or loss, have finished by knockout. All 6 of those fights that ended by knockout, whether for or against, were performance bonus fights.
And I don't mean this to be disrespectful at all, and hopefully he takes this as a compliment if he is watching this, similar to who was watching our Contender Series
Darius Flowers.
Good on you, Darius. Good on you. You won via WWE moves, but hey, that was pretty cool. Joaquin Buckley reminds me of Jimmy Manuwa. I think that's fair to say. Like, he's going to win by knockout, he's going to lose by knockout, and he's going to go out on his shield the majority of the time. And again, Jimmy Manuwa, what was he good at? He had really good boxing. It would either give him knockout wins or give him knockout losses because of it. For Buckley, I can kind of see his career playing out in a very similar way to Jimmy Manuwa's, to where it's going to be fun no matter what. I just don't know how sustainable this type of a career is. And even against a guy like Nassourdine Imavov, to sort of bring it back to this fight and less big picture stuff, Joaquin Buckley could land one of those big hooks on Imavov, knock him out. He can do that to any fighter in the division. Imavov's really good at moving backwards, though, and then fighting off of his own power punches. And if Joaquin Buckley thinks, oh, I'm going to be the bigger guy, I'm going to be the stronger guy, I'm just going to bully myself into range and land one of my big hooks, Nassourdine Imavov, his whole game is created around stopping guys who rely on that kind of a game plan. So I think this fight could be a weird one, where it could be fight of the night, but it could also be over based on the first strike that lands.
Well, for big picture, I mean, again, 7 fights in the UFC for Joaquin Buckley. He has 6 knockdowns already, and he's number 6 all-time in the middleweight division UFC history for knockdown average per 15 minutes. Number 1, Drew McFedries, a blast from the past. So if we do look at this matchup for Nassourdine Imavov, I mean, well-rounded striking. He mixes in his kicks. He does like to throw in combination, pumps the jab out there a lot. 1 double up, triple up. I mean, Sir Mix-a-Lot would have fun with the way
would.
that Nasruddin Imavov fights. But the other thing that he does when he throws his right hand, he picks the power to land in that right hand. And it can come from a couple of different angles. So I do like that. If you do look at it, he had those wins over Heinisch and Shabazian back in 2021. Also had the loss to Phil Haas. This is first action in 2022, and he gets to fight close to home. He's out of the MMA factory. So good look for him there. Obviously, he has 4 submission wins on his record. He is the more likely to mix in his submissions or try and get submission sweeps. He'd be the type to go for Kimura to try and sweep from bottom if Buckley does mix in his own wrestling. But when I do look at this one, for me, Joaquin Buckley does like to throw with a lot of power, but he will mix in some clinch positions. He will mix in a little bit of offensive wrestling. Joaquin Buckley struggles to stop the takedown. Nasruddin Imavov, for as good as he is with his submissions and his own wrestling, he also struggles to stop takedowns. So I do like this matchup quite a bit. I think it's going to be a lot of fun while it lasts. And for Imavov, he likes to stop takedowns with submission attempts. We saw that against Shabazian, where in the second round, Shabazian goes for the takedown. Imavov goes for the front headlock. And then out of that, he ends up and sweeps on top, and then he ends up getting that man of crucifix for the elbows. So we look at the odds in this matchup. Imavov open to minus 180, minus 260. Buckley open plus 155, plus 209. I look at that and go, well, geez, I think Joaquin Buckley's got a better than a 2-1 shot to win in a matchup like this. Yeah, I actually do. We have a look at the Tapology votes, so Matt's not going to be surprised. I'm going to say over under 70% Imavov.
I think it'll be over.
You think it's going to be over? Slightly over.
Much.
1,107 total votes, 76% Imavov, 29% by decision, 59% by knockout. For the 24% that have Buckley, 73% by knockout. You think Nasruddin Imavov wins overwhelmingly?
I do, because this is the thing. He's the much more refined fighter out of these two. The thing about Joaquin Buckley is he doesn't lead his boxing combinations with punches. He leads with his chin every single time. And Imavov, again, his whole entire game is, I can use my volume to move forward. I can counter with power when I'm on the back foot. And if he does get on top on the mat, I think he's the overwhelmingly better grappler out of the, between these two. With Buckley, his strikes are still very raw. Again, he can land those crazy 360 spin kicks, but again, that strike was much more of an isolated strike than the story about Joaquin Buckley's game. I think he's going to come into this fight primarily as a boxer, and if he's not able to knock out Imavov in, the first or second round, I do think Nasruddin, again, is the much more technical fighter between these two, and that's why I like him in this matchup. I think he is going to be able to slide in and out of range effectively, and probably find the chin of Joaquin Buckley at some point, because if Kevin Holland, who is a blown-up middleweight, welterweight, can have enough power to drop a guy like Joaquin Buckley, I do think Imavov, if he is able to land on the chin of Buckley, can probably put him down as well.
To me, I think Imavov wins this fight. It's always the fear of the knockout out of Joaquin Buckley, whether it's for or against. But you look at this matchup, I do like the volume out of Imavov. I don't like the fact that Imavov can get held with his back up against the cage for long periods of his fights, something that Joaquin Buckley can do very well. I prefer the gas tank out of Imavov. But again, if you like Joaquin Buckley in this matchup, his NFTs in 2021 were probably like Hansel. They were so hot right now. In 2022, I haven't heard about NFTs anymore. Are they still a thing?
I don't want to bring up Ian Heinisch again, but every single time I see his Twitter, he's just like hashtag all these different things.
NFTs, they're still hot.
They're still a thing.
Both of us going with France's Nasruddin Imavov to get the win. And coming up this weekend, let us know in the comments section who you have. Some big-time fights. Another middleweight banger in the co-main event. Whitaker taking on Vettori. Main event, Ciryl Gane taking on Tai Tuivasa. You're not going to want to miss it. Keep it locked in with Fight Night Picks. We always say,
let's get into it.